thank you so much for joining us today. This is Tom and Jesse Talk Movies.
I'm Tom.
And that's Tom. Before we begin, I want to just let you know that if you'd like to contact us for any reason, if you have any questions or concerns, things that you want to hear more about, you can contact us at programs@cshlibrary.org. So please feel free to reach out to us. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today.
So today it's a really exciting show. We're going to be talking about the Oscars. Kind of postponed a little bit. Normally it would be in the January, February time of the year.
Yeah, we figured, start of the year, January's Oscar month for us. So let's discuss. And this is exciting. There's so much to cover. And, we review certain movies with this program. We review certain, new movies that we watch, old movies and so forth. But we came up with the idea of, themes. January, Oscar time. It's awards season. It's exciting. We're really into that. So let's just, go into it.
Sure.
So this year is, it'll be the 93rd Academy Awards. They will be on April 25th, 2021.
Just a little bit of a change from what it normally is. It's postponed, obviously, because of everything going on.
What's going on. And we're going to talk about what do the Oscars look like in COVID, So, like I said, April 25th, 2021, it'll be broadcast on ABC. And on March 15th, the nominations for the films and so forth will be released. Academy Awards, let's just, generalize what are the Academy Awards? What are the Oscars? And, it's award season. There's the SAG Awards and, Emmys and so forth.
Golden Globes.
To me, the Oscars were always the end-all, be-all, like the ultimate award show for films. Because if you look at the Golden Globes, that's also television. Academy Awards, Oscars, whatever you call them, it's only film. And, I'll read off what categories will be covered. I assume these will be the categories for this year's Oscar telecast. So the Oscars, what do they mean to you? Like, what do you watch them every year? Do you research? Do you go out and seek out these kinds of films?
So for me personally, I'm an iconoclast in many ways, and for me, I'm not overwhelmingly enthralled by the award ceremonies. I think a majority of it is kind of the self-adulating and patting each other on the back, and I can kind of do without that for the most part. I do like when you have a comedic host like a Ricky Gervais, someone that can kind of make fun of the...
have fun with it,
right. But overall, I will say that I'm always kind of keenly interested in what are the awards for certain movies. I always do kind of have a list, and I'll go back and forth and kind of throughout the course of the year. I want to see what is generating a ton of acclaim. But overall, I think for the most part, I mean, the glitz and the glamour and the pageantry is something that it turns me off a little bit.
Yeah, and you're not alone, because you look at it this way. To me, Oscars we celebrate film.
Right.
We get into the nitty gritty, and film is such a collaborative effort, and there's so many categories. From acting, directing, writing, but like no awards for like stunts or like the boom operator or something like that. So many people work on these films. So much goes into it. And usually they're filmed 2 years before they actually hit the theater.
Right.
You and I have been on some film sets, so we get to kind of see like the background and what goes into it.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to mention is that Tom and I both met, we went to school for film, for those of you that don't know. And I mean, I had no idea just how much of a collaborative effort filmmaking is.
Right.
There's so much that goes into it, so many men and women and their contributions. It's more than just kind of pointing a camera at someone and recording some lines of dialogue.
Right.
I mean, these are really exhausting processes where you can be on a film set for 12, 13 hours a day, and you have grips and gaffers and best boys, and you have people that are setting up the scenery and costume design and production design. There's so many elements of filmmaking, and I think that oftentimes that when someone gets up on stage, for the most part, I mean, certainly it's nice that they're individually acknowledged, but it's such a joint effort that so many people work hard for. So I think that's important not to lose sight of.
Absolutely. And it's, like Oscars and the red carpet, that they go hand in hand. I mean, there are people who watch it for, I want to see what everyone's wearing, and that's cool. That's not, I mean, you and I are not really into that. We're more into, okay, let's discuss the work and the film. But that's fine. It is a celebration. It's a giant party. So there are people, and there have been many people in Hollywood, whether actors or producers, who don't like the Oscars. I don't want to go. They say those kinds of things. We look at what Marlon Brando has done and George C. Scott. So lots of different opinions on this stuff. And I think you bring up a good point, because it's like, at the end of the day, they are just making movies. They're not saving lives.
Right.
So yeah, handing out trophies.
Right.
There are actors who act for trophies, which is not what you and I are here to talk about. We're here to talk about, let's get into the actors and the people who want to make good art.
Right.
And there are certain actors, you listen to their speeches, and I always appreciate when an actor talks about, like, whether you were the key grip or the executive producer, I appreciate what you did.
Right.
And that, to me, is really what the Oscars are about. Everybody coming together, forget, because it's all subjective.
Right.
How many movies come out and we're like, we didn't like it.
Right, and when that's the thing, and I don't want to harp on the negative, because I certainly want this to be a positive discussion about film and the beauty of filmmaking. But it's interesting that you brought up George C. Scott.
Yes.
George C. Scott was an actor that starred alongside Paul Newman in The Hustler. And he found out apparently that he was going to be nominated by the Academy for an award. And he explicitly said, before he was ever nominated, he said, "I will not accept your nomination." He said, "Thank you very much. But at the end of the day, every film should be judged based on its own merit. They shouldn't be pitted up against each other." And I think that if you see that a movie's nominated and wins an award, I mean, there's so many movies, especially the ones in that particular category, that are deserving of commendation, of praise. And so it's not necessarily fair, I think, just to focus solely on that movie. Movies should be appreciated and enjoyed by everyone,
of course,
singularly.
My philosophy is, and I believe you share the same thought process, is that if you're interested in a movie and it gets really bad reviews, go out and see it for yourself.
See it.
Because there are so many movies that, like, you love to hear reviews, of course, but it's so subjective. You want to be able to judge for yourself, of course. So, all right. So the Oscars, I've grown up watching them. There are aspects I'm not into, but then there are, aspects I'm really into. So it tends to be a lot of the movies that get nominated tend to be not the most mainstream films. It'd be like, wait, I've never heard of that.
Right.
And like maybe only serious moviegoers have heard of certain films, like The Artist. That one several years ago, and it's like, wait, who saw that? So it's interesting. So watching the Oscars, you learn so much. You get, I would sit there with a notepad, like, okay, I want to see this, I want to see that. And that's really cool. So I think we could just go into, the ceremony itself, the categories. Let's discuss.
Sure.
Over the years, the categories have been changed a bit. They've, widened to, it used to be like, there was like 4 or 5 Best Picture noms. Now there's 7, 8. And I think that's really cool. So the categories, acting. We have, Best Actor, Best Actress, and then the Supporting Actor, Supporting Actress. And those are the ones I'm really into, because I like to watch a film and really get, engulfed in their world. And I think a good performance, depending on the subject matter, is what can really pull the viewer into it.
Absolutely.
And then after we have, and this is not in order, this is just alphabetical actually, an animated feature film, Toy Story, we've seen that kind of stuff get nominated. Then they go into cinematography, the look of the film, the lighting and so forth, the real techie stuff that goes over my head, where you and I are into writing.
Yes.
So like you want to have a cinematographer is like, okay, what lens are we shooting on?
They have to interpret the mood of the piece.
Exactly.
So the screenwriter and the director have a certain vision.
How wide is the shot going to be?
Right.
How close up? What are we going to do?
Absolutely.
That is a complicated job. So
I wish I had the mind for that, but I don't.
Yeah, you may be watching a film, be like, oh, it's black and white. That's the cinematographer. Sitting with the director, going, we need to capture the mood of this film, like Schindler's List.
If there's a tint to the scene itself, perhaps it's filmed, if there's a certain color to the scene, that's trying to influence an emotion or some way. Those are all choices that are consciously made in collaboration with the director.
Costume design speaks for itself. You know, in a period film, you want to have accurate representation of the time. So a film, you know, in the 1800s, they're not going to be wearing sweatshirts, and so much goes into that. You know, obviously, directing is a big one. Best director, the director, like this is your movie. You know, like this is your vision come to life. So forth. Documentary. I'm a big documentary fan, so we celebrate those as well. They do also there's documentary feature and documentary, you know, short, which to me is documentary short. I mean, that's kind of one of those categories where it's like, they'll always list them and you'll be like, okay, I've never heard of that stuff. But,
and then how do you go about finding?
Exactly. They're hard to
view.
Unless you go to like, I love the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington. That's a really great place. And they will screen those films, you know, the documentary shorts. Film editing is a major one. Literally putting the film together so you can tell the story. That editing is really tedious. We've both done it.
We've done it, and we know how integral it is to the overall flow of the movie as well.
Totally.
I mean, there are times we've pulled up on YouTube some really badly edited shots or sequences, and it just totally throws you off from
For sure.
what you're trying to watch.
Absolutely. And then international feature film. So, you know, film from Italy, France. You know, that's always cool. I think it's always fascinating to see how other countries make film. I mean, last year we had Parasite, which was a Korean drama / horror / comedy. Just sweep the Oscars, and that's
which was
fascinating.
Sensational. I mean, I love an underdog story, and Parasite certainly I think is
for sure. So that is important. Makeup and hairstyling, and then they go into music, original score. You know, or adapted, you know, from a different, you know, movie or play or so forth. The major one, Best Picture, of course. What is the Best Picture? And then, you know, that's
the award that gets all the eyeballs.
Of course, and it's like, I can't tell you how many times it's like, Best Picture gets announced, and then everybody comes into the library, ooh, put me down for this movie. And then people return like, I don't really care for that movie. And I mean, it's so subjective. So this is just what the Academy comes out. This is just what they vote on. I mean, hey, there are movies I watch and love that will never be at the Oscars.
Likewise.
Production design, achievement in production, set decoration, which is just so important. You know, when you're filming Pirates of the Caribbean, okay, what is the boat gonna look like? What does the dock look like? All really important pieces when constructing your movie.
Especially when you speak to kind of period pieces, boy, that's when set design really comes into play, because you need to make sure that everything is authentic to a particular time period.
Of course, you know, short film, which is they do animated short film, then they do live action short film, and I mean that's another category that I feel most people, you know, us we're not really familiar with short films. I feel that the only kind of short films that you end up hearing about tend to be like the Pixar short films that they'll put before their movie, but that's not really a thing anymore. I mean, cinema in the 20s and 30s, they would always screen that kind of stuff. Nowadays, how do you access that kind of stuff? It's hard.
It's true.
You go to a specialty theater or you go online, basically. Sound, of course, you know, sound design, huge. That's huge. Star Wars, like, oh, did you like what does space sound like? That's, you know, that's a big one. How do you do that? Visual effects, of course, which are special effects, explosions, or maybe they're CGI robots, or, you know, which one stood out this year? And then lastly, but probably, you know, your favorite, one of mine, writing. They have adapted screenplay. And original screenplay. Adapted is like, oh, we're turning a book into
Little Women, for instance.
Little Women is a great example. Original screenplay, you know, the writer sat down and just came up with an idea. Let's put this in a film. So those are your categories. That's what the Oscars cover. They hand out awards for all of those. Some I think are more interesting than others. We did cover that. But like I said, the nominations for these will be released March 15th. That's really exciting because so many people I know, film people, will wake up at like 6 a.m. and watch them get announced.
It's like Christmas. Or
exactly. It's cool, you know, if you're into that kind of stuff. So let's talk about.
Do you want to highlight? I mean, we just went through the list of categories. Do you want to highlight a specific category or specific film that was kind of impactful to you?
Yes, I want to talk about what comes to mind with cinematography. Roger Deakins is a very famous cinematographer. He's done movies everybody has seen. He did Skyfall,
Yes,
one of the James Bond movies, and that to me was absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gorgeous looking movie, and what was great was at the Oscars they'll always show when they announce the like the nominees, they'll be like, oh, here's a clip from the movie, and they picked at the time like the best clip from the film, and it was a fight scene between James Bond and a villain, and like it was in Tokyo, and their silhouettes,
all the neon
yes,
lights.
they were fighting in some sort of futuristic looking
It's like a high rise
office building, and we just saw their black silhouettes, and in the background you see all the neon signs of Japan, and that was just breathtaking. I felt
absolutely,
and that one comes to mind. Cinematography is so important because we're setting the mood for a film. You know, if you're going to watch Saving Private Ryan, that's another favorite of mine. The film has a gritty look to it. Things are gray, and you're not going to have a war movie, especially World War II, take place with the sun beaming down and everything. You know, rainbows. So that cinematographer.
You're trying to subconsciously influence the experience of the viewer.
You're setting the scene. You're trying to get the viewer engulfed, absorbed into the film, because how many movies have you seen and it's just like, you're not pulling me into this. So cinematography is really important.
And especially with a war movie, something like that, you don't often want to have like a bright color palette. I mean, like you said, you want to have muted hues where, again, it's sort of representative of just the dinginess and the grime and the struggle.
Exactly. The dark green of their uniforms and the gray skies when they're storming the beach. It's just, you feel like you're there. And the movies that pull you in and make you feel like you're actually there, that's the best.
I love it.
Which categories do you?
So you kind of alluded to this earlier. I actually just recently rewatched a film I haven't seen in years, Chinatown, which came out in 1975, and it won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. And I have here, I'm going to have to just read a little synopsis. I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with the movie, but it's kind of convoluted on the surface if I try to explain it, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. So this was just the first thing I found on Google. So when Los Angeles private eye J.J. Gittes, which is Jack Nicholson, is hired by Evelyn Mulwray to investigate her husband's activities, he believes it's a routine infidelity case. Jake's investigation soon becomes anything but routine when he meets the real Miss Mulwray, played by Faye Dunaway. She's sensational in this, and realizes he was hired by an imposter. Mr. Mulwray's sudden death sets Gittes on a tangled trail of corruption, deceit, and sinister family secrets, as Evelyn's father becomes a suspect in the case. So this is a film that's really, I mean, it was sensationally written, and that's chiefly one of my interests in sort of entering film or the realm of film was screenwriting. And it is just such a taut, well-written thriller. In particular, what I really like about it is that it's not overly complicated. Maybe on paper it sounds a little bit convoluted, but what I loved is that Robert Towne, who wrote the screenplay, all the constituents are kind of laid out to you in the first act. All the puzzle pieces are kind of laid out for you there. It's told in sort of a nonlinear fashion, and there's an economy to the dialogue. You're not getting more than you need to know. So you're kind of hanging on every word. This is one of my favorite screenplays ever written because it's a little bit over 2 hours, but I was just gripped the entire time. So going back to the way the story is told, because it's kind of told in a non-linear fashion, even though you have all those pieces together, it's not leading you into a direction that you think you're going to go. The end result is not where you think that you would have been. So it's one that's going to keep you guessing the entire time, which I think it's incredibly well written. Overall, I love the look of the film too. I mean, it's film noir, and it kind of revitalized. I mean, you had like films like Maltese Falcon, things of that nature. This really brought film noir, neo noir, back to the mainstream. I just love absolutely everything about it. One of the staples of film noir normally is an unreliable narrator. meaning that you sometimes get exposition from the narrator, and that's not someone that you can trust. What this movie does so effectively is that it's not necessarily the narrator, Jack Nicholson, the protagonist, that's unreliable. It's everyone around him. So you're being fed information, and you can't tell from these other characters what's true or what's not. It's just done so adroitly, and it just tells such a great, really interesting story through the dialogue that it's absolutely fascinating. So strongly recommend Chinatown, 1975, if you guys haven't seen it. I'd like to hear more about what interests you.
Yeah, so my personal favorite Oscar film is a lesser known one, and it's somewhat recent. It's from 2016. The film was called Jackie, about Jackie Onassis, Jackie Kennedy. And not for political reasons, I just thought this was a phenomenal character piece. Mm-hmm. And this is a movie, like I said, 2016. I saw it at the Huntington Cinema Arts Center. And not knowing too much about that era of politics, actually, but that's not what the film is going for. This is a character piece. We focus on Jackie grieving, dealing with her husband was just assassinated, a devastating time in American history. And it takes place, the film opens and that happens. And then we go into how does she deal with it? What now? And, the days after the assassination. Natalie Portman plays Jackie. I actually was never a huge Natalie Portman fan. I just never really got into her. But then I saw this movie and I'm like, okay, I was wrong. She's phenomenal. Okay. And what I really liked about this movie is that her character, while grieving the whole time and she's miserable, it's not an uplifting, happy movie. We are following a widow. What I loved about it is we so got inside her head and we saw depicted on film what she was feeling. And she's in the spotlight at this time. And so her emotions are broadcast. She is spotlight under a microscope. And I learned a lot from it historically, of course, but whether you know about that aspect or not, it's a fascinating film because just to see what this character had to deal with is just like, I was just stunned. And she was nominated for Best Actress. She did not win. The film was also nominated for Best Costume Design and Best Original Score. The score is haunting. It's the same kind of piece looped throughout the movie. It comes in and out, and it just sticks with you. It gets stuck in your head. It's that good. I strongly recommend it. Just such devastating and traumatic images they get on film of just like she is wearing, that iconic pink outfit with the hat that has blood splattered on it on the plane as LBJ and his wife, they're being sworn in. And she's just kind of standing there in this fog. And I thought Natalie Portman did an outstanding job of resurrecting that character. The movie is available, obviously, on DVD. You can get it from, your local library or so forth. And Chinatown's also
Chinatown as well.
It's streaming on at Prime.
It was Amazon Prime.
Or you get it at the
library.
library.
Come on down.
Yes. So those are our two favorite Oscar movies.
Right.
There's so many other ones. I'm a big fan of Sideways from 2004. That was directed by Alexander Payne, starring Paul Giamatti.
What was that? That was nominated for Best Picture?
It was nominated for Best Picture. Virginia Madsen got a Best Actress nod.
Thomas Hayden
Church, yes. Sandra Oh is also in it, kind of like a dark comedy. That's another one that sticks out.
American Beauty, I just think is one
American Beauty.
Both really, really appreciate.
Excellent. Kevin Spacey and Annette Bening, and probably one of her best roles. She was nominated. She did not win, which is crazy.
She was so good.
Oh, phenomenal. And that's what I think about when we discuss the Academy Awards. These just moments in film that just we can't forget. And then, you go back and you watch these movies. Jackie, you don't put on for entertainment fun. You're getting in the head of another character. And that to me is filmmaking at its best. Yeah. I mean, when I'm not watching the Fast and Furious car chases.
But a different movie for a different mood. I mean,
exactly.
Sometimes you want to find something that's more intellectually driven than just
exactly.
blowing stuff up. But
Exactly.
Everything has its place.
I want to talk about what the Oscars will look like 2021 during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We've never really done this before. So what's going to happen? So just to reiterate, April 25th of this year on ABC. If you forget that, you could just Google it. The criteria for which films can be nominated has been altered for the first time since I believe it was the 70s. So we know that, I mean, at least here in New York, like, pandemic hit in March 2020, and theaters were shut down right away. And in half the country, they reopened many months later.
Right.
In New York, it was even longer that they didn't reopen. So all these major films, Wonder Woman, the sequel 1984, even like comic book movies, just everything put on streaming or just yanked from the release date, which is definitely
something that's never happened.
Happened before. I mean, we all know Friday is movie release day.
Right.
Movies come out on Friday. Then with it 4 or 5 months later, they come out on video, Blu-ray, 4K, whatever, on Tuesdays. So there's a strict schedule. But what they changed for this season was that films that came out in 2020, so the first 3 months basically, and any film that was due to be released in theaters in 2020 that went to video on demand and other streaming will be eligible for a nomination.
That's very different.
Which is now, I mean, a movie that goes straight to streaming because theaters were closed. Right. So they did it. Wonder Woman is, what comes to mind. The Invisible Man was a film that came out in February 2020 and was a big hit, but didn't really get to live too long. I mean, that was put on streaming. Some Marvel movie, the Bloodshot movie with Vin Diesel.
Trolls 2, I think.
Trolls World Tour. That movie did even better on streaming. So
it was obliterating records.
So to be precise, films from January 1st, 2020, up until February 28th, 2021, are eligible. Films that were either in theaters in the first 3 months of 2020, or if they were released and streaming November 8th, 2020, are eligible. And that's pretty cool because that really widens what kind of films can get nominated. We know that November and December tend to be the heavy hitters when Oscar, like The Aviator, films like that getting released in December, Christmas, the week before Christmas. Those movies, they come out in theaters. Oh, these might be the Oscar bait.
Right, the buzz.
The buzz. Those come out usually around the holiday season of that year. But look what they did. Wonder Woman came out on Christmas Day on HBO Max, so their streaming service. I mean, this stuff has never happened before.
No, never.
That's over $200 million budget going to streaming. Right. It's unprecedented. So,
and there will be, I mean, that's, I guess it's a topic for another day, but there are going to be a lot of reverberations from now onward with budgeting. I mean, the accessibility, are people just going to be able to more easily just go on, hit a button and be able to watch the newest movie? That's all stuff that's going to kind of impact budgets and the way movies are made. But it's still a little bit too early to see the effects of it.
Exactly. And I mean, a lot of the films you're going to see get nominated are movies that you might not have heard of because, like I said, half the country has been closed down. So these films that are nominated were in theaters, maybe in 500 theaters as opposed to 3,000 theaters, which is when a movie comes out on a Friday, they say wide, it's usually 2,500 plus theaters, but at a time when 600 theaters were open nationwide. I mean, so you're going to see a lot of movies. I know there's this one movie out right now that's been, indie film called, I think it's Promising Young Woman with Carey Mulligan.
Okay.
She's getting that's getting a lot of Oscar buzz. So I am so out of the, usually I keep up.
Right.
I am so out of the loop with new movies because I've seen friends who are like, oh, what are your favorite movies of the year? And I'm like, I haven't seen
I don't even remember when the year started anymore, so I have to really go back and figure out.
So there are going to be movies that are nominated, and you're like, I have never heard of this. But I think that's really good because you can now go out and research, and you'll have easier access to these films.
And it's going to put a spotlight on things that I haven't necessarily been familiar with. It's going to kind of put a spotlight on things.
I know there's a Frances McDormand movie. I think it's called Nomadland. That's getting a lot of buzz. Again,
I
you
love
know
her.
what?
I love Frances McDormand.
Yeah, big
I'm in.
fan. 3 Billboards. She was excellent in that. But like, yeah, again, that movie. So it's like you can literally, like, you know, at the end, if you go on Google, like, oh, 2021 Oscar predictions, and I've looked at that myself. I'm like, I haven't heard of 90% of these films, and so I'm really excited for the nominations, and whatever nominations come are, you know, they come out. I always jot them down, put in my requests at the library, or I try to find them on streaming. And you know, some Oscar years have more interesting films. I think last year, which was the 92nd Academy Awards, when Parasite won, that Joker, Judy, those were that was a time when like the majority of films, I'm like, I'm not really interested in. So I mean, that happened.
I like that we did get, but like you mentioned, we did get a few surprises. Parasite, I think that was a big surprise to me.
A foreign film won Best Picture. That's crazy.
And Joker being there's a sort of stigma, I guess, even though it's not a superhero movie.
Right.
I mean, films normally of that nature are sort of disregarded just because of the content, the subject matter. But Joaquin Phoenix played such a tormented individual. I mean, it would have been. There would have been an uproar if he wasn't acknowledged for his performance. So Joker's another one I feel very strongly about.
Exactly. So I think that wraps up this week. You know, all month long.
Do you want to open the floor up if anyone has any comments or if anyone wants to share any of their films that they're passionate about?
Yeah. Is there anything? Feel free to speak up. Or if you're shy, you can always email us at programs@cshlibrary.org.
Sure.
You want us to discuss any certain kind of Oscar films, questions, comments, concerns, anything. We're completely open. We're going to be talking about the Oscars all month long. I'm really excited. I think, you know, next week we can talk about other Oscar films that have won. Maybe talk about some Oscar snubs because that is a big thing.
I like the snubs category.
Right. What makes a film deserving of an Oscar?
Right.
All interesting topics that we will discuss. So, does anyone want to say anything? If not, it's totally cool.
Yeah.
But I think that wraps it up for this week.
Okay.
So.
Do you want to plug the email one more time? So that's programs@cshlibrary.org. If you guys and girls have anything to say to us, we'd love to hear from you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for watching.
Really
We appreciate your time.
This is the most people we've ever had, so this is exciting.
Yes.
We really appreciate you all
nervous.
So thank you guys. and
Thank
girls
you guys so much. We really appreciate it. We hope to see you next week.
Yeah, we'd love to see you next week.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks for staying.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.